Good morning. Today is Tuesday morning, January 26th. We are just about ready to close out the first month of the new year. I am going to do the People's Podcast today. I wanted to let some of the questions sort of pile up on my Facebook. So if you've not been to my Facebook page, it's facebook.com/mytaughtyou. I do, if you scroll, maybe I'll pin it or something today. I've been allowing people to just pop their questions in there. And so I picked questions from Facebook. I picked questions from Instagram. And I've kind of just glanced over them and tried to pick questions that summed up what many of you had already said. A quick housekeeping thing, you know how we do. All of the journals that were back ordered have shipped. I have decided, because I got contacted by so many people, thanks to Nicole Bitchy. Hey, Nicole. Decided to put the This Is My Year journals back on sale, but I have to wait about 2 or 3 weeks before I can get those made. And I try to order an abundant amount so that they don't sell out so quickly. So let's keep our fingers crossed that we can keep those in the store for just a little while. And I am so thrilled that you are enjoying the journals. If you haven't had a chance to listen to the podcast that I recorded, the public podcast that I recorded regarding that, that is on iTunes on my website. And I'm in the process of putting these all on SoundCloud too. So a lot of people have asked me to do that. Doing that. So without further ado, let's get into some of these questions. I have someone said, Myleik, I am smart, I am ambitious, professional, but I'm very introverted and I suck at sales. Books, ? What to do, ? I think that if you are as smart as you say you are going to have to get better at sales. I think that the introversion is something that you're going to have to work a little bit harder on. I do have a podcast about that. Scroll through. But I think that the first plan of business for you is to start getting good at sales. Now, one of my favorite sets of books for sales is by a gentleman, Jeffrey Gitomer. As you can see, I'm typing it as we speak, but it's Jeffrey Gitomer, Gitomer. And he's at Gitomer on Twitter. And he just has a slew of really amazing books that are easy to read that help you become a better salesperson. It doesn't matter what business you're in, you're always going to be selling something, whether it's you, your services, your products. And so you have to get comfortable about what you're selling and feel okay selling. I know sometimes it's unfortunate because a lot of us were raised to not, it feels like begging sometimes. I'm not gonna lie to you. I know that it can feel like that when you're selling. Like you really just want to be like, listen, if you don't want it, you don't have to have it because I don't even care. And sometimes I get like that. So even just this one recent tweet Jeffrey Gitomer has is sales is sales. It's not who you're calling on or what you're selling. It's how you present yourself. And so all he pretty much talks about is sales, and he's my favorite salesperson to study. So go ahead and get into that. Work on your sales first. Once you have the confidence to sell, I think that you'll start to work on your introversion. And some people suffer a lot, and a lot of people are simply introverted because they don't have the confidence. They don't know what they're talking about. And I think that once you get confident about what you're talking about, you will at least be able to kind of puff your chest out in your arena. I am like that. Like when I'm in my arena, girl, my chest is puffed all the way out. Like Miss Myleik knows what she's talking about. But when I'm not in my arena, and when I'm not in my arena, I can be a little bit shy, when I go places where I'm unfamiliar, I tend to sort of observe. Like I'm very much an observer, which can be mistaken for introversion, and maybe it is, but I spend a lot of time just trying to scope out the lay of the land, and I typically don't say much. So sometimes when people meet me out of my arena, I do not come across as this confident person that I tend to be in business and online, and that's just because I'm unfamiliar, potentially slightly uncomfortable, and maybe that is what is aiding in your introversion. But I just gave you the key to getting into sales. And if you wrote that to me, and if you are also interested in sales and you grab any of those books, shoot me a tweet, tag me on Instagram. I would love to see which ones you're reading because I haven't read any I think I have like maybe 5 of his books, and they're called like little black books, little red books, little platinum books. I haven't read, I don't know if he has any new ones out, but I used to read these maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, and I still refer to them, and they're amazing. So tag me and let me know if you're reading any of the new ones. All right. Next question. This one was interesting. Based on your social media, many believe that you are the epitome of a carefree black girl woman, someone trying to start a social media movement. Some people just go through life while some live life. On Facebook, someone wrote that Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes is a great read for someone who is quote unquote inside. A great way of explaining how folks play small on a personal level. When did you decide that you were going to live life on your own terms? And can you offer any tips for carefree, budding, carefree black girls, women? And I think this can apply to all women, but I do understand and have a sensitivity to women of color. And I do understand that the amount of information being disseminated to us, specifically for us, is limited. And I think we all know that blogs that are highlighted and that are promoted, and even there are more podcasts from women who are not of color. So I completely understand that. I'll start with the top of the question and I'll work my way down. I really have no control over how people view me. You know, I've given up trying to do that anyway. So I have simply just committed to being myself. And I don't recall the exact moment that I got super gung ho about it, but I would say that I've been this way for a long time. So as a senior in high school, I was student body president. I have always been on clubs, committees. I have always wanted to lead. I have always wanted my opinion to be heard. I have always felt like what I do and say matters. Over time, I have simply gotten more confident about that. I'm not necessarily trying to start a social media movement or a movement at all. I am simply here to remind you that you have everything it takes and that there is absolutely no reason for you not to succeed except yourself. I have seen oftentimes lots of excuses for why people haven't made it. And I'm not saying that there aren't any hurdles or challenges, and I'm not acknowledging that our hurdles and challenges tend to be taller, but that just means we have to work harder. And so I'm just here to be an example of that. And I think that so many people before me have done that. And I believe that I have gotten the confidence from other women that look like me that were doing that. The Oprahs of the world, the Shonda Rhimeses of the world. And for those of you who have not read Shonda Rhimes' Year of Yes, like it is a complete treat. And I will address that question about people who are inside or play small on a personal level. Many of us were simply raised to be that way. I know that my mom has this big, huge personality, but somewhere she wasn't, maybe taught to go for it and to be vibrant. And sometimes we tend to squash that because we think people won't understand us, or we won't, as women, we're too afraid to be too confident. Let me tell you something. Talked to my dad last night. So my dad will be 62 this year, I think, and he, inspired by me, has started this side business that he's doing. So we've been talking about it quite a bit, and he's retiring this year, but as he's retiring, he's kind of getting into his side business. And he said, let me tell you something, Miley, not to toot my own horn, but I am excellent at what I do. And I thought to myself, now I love my dad, but I don't know, I cannot verify how good or bad he is at this. But he did not flinch when it came to saying how amazing he thinks he is at his little side hustle. Now, why can't we be like that? I think women, we are so afraid to toot our own horn. We are so afraid to say what we're good at. Or a lot of us are saying that we're really good at stuff we're not really that good at, because I do notice the flip side of that. So over time, I think you just have to become more confident in when you can acknowledge what you're not great at. Like, I know where my weaknesses are. That gives me more confidence to speak to my strengths. I think a lot of times when we're too afraid to say what we suck at, so we just don't, we kind of just like lay flat about everything. And I'm here to tell you, like, I'm good at this and this, and I am not good at X, Y, and Z, and I know what those things are, and I'm okay with it. And some of those things I'm working on, and some of those things I'm not. Some of those things I'm just like, we are not designed to be great at everything, and I'm gonna, work on the things, perfect the things that I'm great at. Um, Take a bucket of some of the things I suck at and work on them, and the others they're just gonna have to fall on the floor because nobody's perfect. Got it? All right, next question. The power of same is what she's asking. The power of same. Doing the same activity, systems, habits are underrated. Some think that being creative and trying multiple things will lead to success. Would love for you to talk about the power of consistency. Doing the same thing over and over, mastering the mundane will lead to success. I looked at this question and I'm like, yes and no. I'm like, I get it, but I don't. I get what you're trying to say. There is definitely power in consistency. Um, Being consistent definitely will take you over the top, but doing the same thing over and over again doesn't make you better than anybody else. It's not challenging you in any way. And at some point, once you've mastered the mundane, you really have to move on and you have to stretch yourself. And so there's a difference in the power of consistency and basically doing the same thing over and over again. Like, you don't get very far doing, like, it's this thing that I talk about, like the Me Too culture. If all you do is say Me Too and all you do is run around copying what other people are doing, there's no power in that. I'm not saying there aren't any rewards in that, because that's why racists can have 10 to 100 people to 1,000 people in them, first place to 1,000th place. But where do you want to be in the race? If you want to be 50th or 100th, with which I know a lot of people are great at. One of my friends always says, like, I'll take being 300th and still being a millionaire. If that's who you are and where you are, then sure. But if you're playing to win, you definitely have to and it's not about necessarily being creative, but being curious, being curious and stretching yourself to try things and become great at more than just the mundane tasks. I think once you've mastered the mundane, then you can move on. So many people are trying things and haven't mastered the mundane yet. They haven't mastered the simple task. And I think that that's probably what you're talking about. But I hope that I spoke to that. If you disagree, tweet me. I'm at my leak on Twitter. Next question is about business partnerships. Have you ever considered one? Why or why not? Who would make the best partners? What else did you say? Friends or perfect strangers? Additional advice on partnerships would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, my league. Love the new journal also. Thank you so much, Neo, naturally. I really appreciate that. The other day, I was... I have a Medium account, and it's medium.com/@myleak, where I blog a little bit. I did one recently on what some of my favorite books are, and I was researching one of my favorite authors, who happens to be Robert Greene, Greene with an E, who did the 48 Laws of Power. And he said something that will pretty much answer this question and tell you how I feel about it. He says, keep your friends for friendship, but work with the skilled and competent. Okay? Keep your friends for friendship, but work with the skilled and competent. So I have worked with, or I should say I have worked on a team with one of my friends. But this is a friend who is my best friend. We don't work together anymore. And I think that once our paths kind of got to be too similar, we decided to just move on and maintain the friendship. But at the beginning, he was starting the Beautiful Hair Steamer, and I was doing PR and sort of social media before that was even a thing. And I helped him grow his company. And then once I started Curlbox, we both became sort of like business owners in the same space. And it just didn't make sense for us to work together anymore. And so we just saved the friendship and dissolved our business ties, but we still do things for each other. I think you guys see Oprah and Gail, they probably don't work together, but they assist each other. So it's like, Oprah will go on Gail's morning show. Gail comes on as Oprah's friend. And so I think that there's some alignment, but I think it's like that support of a friend, but it's not really working, being way too deep in bed with a friend. So I am not particularly into it. So on my team, I have become friends with a lot of people on my team. I would say that like Diana, who works with me, I would definitely consider her a good friend. Kim, I consider a good friend. We went on vacation together. Like all the girls that work with me, I consider myself friends with them. Tony, our videographer, all of these people I have an affection for and consider myself friends with. So I think I have become friends, but I choose to work with the skilled and competent first. And my friend Ken, I think, is probably the most skilled and competent person I know, and I feel very fortunate to be friends with him. So that's my thought on that. I'm not a big going into business with friends kind of person. I own my business 100% myself. Not because I used to try to be business partners with people, but I just don't think that a lot of people have the same, like, what is it, chutzpah, or like just the same grit and gut that I do. And so I'd rather just be on my own and make all my own moves, because scared money don't make none. So I don't like to tangle myself up with that. I got another question, which people ask me all the time, and it's, I want to leave my job, but I have no idea in what direction to go. There is an awesome More magazine out right now, More, with, what is the girl's name that was married to Tom Cruise? You know who she is. I'm drawing a blank. I want to say Kate Hudson, but I don't know if that's right. I get those confused, but let's just say it's her. And they have a really awesome article on how to do a career pivot. I think it just starts with you deciding what you're curious about. What are some industries that you are curious about, and taking the time to learn more about those industries. There are so many ways. You can either research those industries. You can then look at entry-level jobs. I've said this ad nauseum, your career will likely be a jungle gym versus a ladder, meaning that when you pivot, you may go down a little bit. You may just go a lateral move across, but that's completely all right, because I'm telling you that there's no salary fit for your happiness, and you'll be surprised. I think I was insanely happy when I made like my lowest amounts of money, when I dropped my clientele to start focusing on building Curlbox. So when I was doing Curlbox, I had another company, and I knew that I needed the time to research brands and companies for that. So I dropped my clientele as low as I could stand it, living as lean as I possibly could. And then I spent all my other time reading all these books and researching hair companies. And that is how I was able to fully pivot and transition. And so it took time. I had to learn about customer service. I've always worked in the service business, but I had never worked with, actual, transactions. So there was a lot of stuff I had to learn. So it took me about a year to read up, to research. And so once I launched it and started it, I would say within about 2 months, I think after 2 months, I closed down my old business and focused on Curlbox 100% because it just deserved my attention. I was scared to let that old company go, but once I sat with a business advisor who basically ran the numbers, who said, if you leave your old business today and start this new business, this is how many additional boxes you need to sell to make up that money. And I swear the number was in the hundreds. And I'm like, if I can't sell a few more hundred, then I don't need to be doing this. And so I did it. And here we are today. Ames Moon Papery said, ask me how to stay creative and upbeat with your business. I think that it's something that should maybe come naturally to you. Doesn't mean that you may not get burned out on it, but usually when I am looking for sort of motivation, or I want to be creative, I always say that I must travel. So I definitely will take a break at times. You don't want to get burned out with your business. So taking a break, learning when to say no to things, I do a lot of reading and research outside of my industry. So if you work in the papery business, I'm just taking a guess and assuming, maybe looking at some things in fashion, checking out some fashion exhibitions at like museums, traveling to museums and checking out fashion exhibitions, cooking, getting inspired by flavors and colors, taking a painting class. Like I do so many things to keep my mind stimulated, reading, and I'm upbeat about my business because I'm just excited to be living, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to try. And I Snapchatted this for those of you that are on Snapchat. I Snapchat at my league, and I just was like, time. I think so many people want to succeed so soon, and even though I appear to be young. I'm 36. I've been working for 20 years, and I started off working in a similar industry, similar to what I'm doing, very young. And so I've been working in some kind of marketing and beauty space basically for 20 years. And so it looks like it's overnight, but I've been doing this for a long time. A lot of you don't know, I was a makeup artist. I worked at Glamour Shots. I worked at MAC. I worked at Clinique. I worked at Lancome. I worked at an agency that represented stylists and makeup artists. So I have been enmeshed in beauty for a long time. My degree is actually, I started off, I almost graduated in business, but switched to fashion. So I have a lot of business experience. I have a lot of fashion experience. So it takes time. And so that's how I stay creative and upbeat. It's just by being deeply interested in what I'm doing. Next question. Advice to people in their 30s that want a complete career overhaul. How do you start over when you've been doing something else for 8 to 10 years? How do you verbalize that to your potential employer? Basically, how do you start over? So I just answered that question, but I think I may have copied it because it's like, how do you verbalize that to your potential employer? I think that you just tell them that very thing, and then you show them, because actions matter. You show them what you've done to make the transition. People transition careers all the time. I don't know. I think our parents have put this thing in our head that you go to a job, you stay there for 20 years, you retire, basically you die on the desk. And that's just not a way to live. And a lot of people understand that. So I did this. I had a wonderful time. Working at AT&T, but I have decided that I want to do something that's more aligned with my passions, which is why I'm here. And that's what you say, is that at some point people want to be aligned with their passion, and that's not strange or weird or anything. Next question is from the six-figure chick. She wants to know why entrepreneurship isn't for everybody and why it's okay to be an intrapreneur. I think that wherever you go, you should be an entrepreneur. And I'm just Googling that because I just want to make sure that I understand it for what it is. But I think an entrepreneur is sort of like being entrepreneurial inside of an organization. And I think that everybody should basically be that at their business, at their job, because you have to own what you do. And I say to people, if you can't work hard for somebody else, you're never going to be able to work hard for yourself. So if you can't jump into somebody's business and somebody's company and get in there and have passion for it as if it was your own, you are not going to magically get that when you step out and decide to work for yourself. Because listen to me, all I've ever wanted to be was an entrepreneur. And I used to think like, oh my God, I work so many hours of my life for somebody else. And then when I jumped over to entrepreneurship, everybody tells you like, I don't have a 9 to 5. It's like when you have an entrepreneurship, you have like more than a 9 to 5. You have a 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., a 5 a.m. to midnight. Like you will work a lot. You may find that you are more satisfied with the work that you're doing, but you will work a lot. And a lot of reasons why people's businesses aren't working out when they do step out is they're trying to have that same approach that they had when they were doing that half-ass work for somebody else for themselves. Sprinkling a little glitter on the half-ass work that you do is not going to make you successful. Having a little sexy photo shoot. I'm like, people just love to take, having a good photo shoot and having some cute font and having some really good colors and outfits will not make you successful. Like you have to work really hard. And so I don't think any one thing is for everyone. I often wonder if I'll ever go back and get a job. The thing is that I'm not opposed to it. And funny enough, I was talking to Lisa Price, the founder of Carol's Daughter, and she and I were talking about how she's gone from being an entrepreneur to an employee again, and how it's different, and it's just a different kind of freedom in a way, and how now she's taken all these different classes, and she's soul cycling, and she's doing these other things because the way that her mind is now freed up. And so nothing's for everyone, and you can flip flop and go back and forth, and somebody buys your company, you become an employee of the company. You technically always work for somebody. Like, I work for the customers, I work for my employees. Entrepreneurship is still an employment of sorts. It's just different. Next question. What do you think the key to true happiness is? I'm not sure if you've done that one before or not. That's such a broad question, and I think that everybody is responsible for their own happiness, and the key to getting closer to happiness is to work on the blocks and hurdles that are keeping you from being happy. And sometimes those blocks and hurdles are conscious, like why you're sad, why you're bummed or down, and then doing something about it. And then other times there's this sub or unconscious, like we subconsciously don't know what's making us sad. Some of us have a lot of family trauma, we just had bad parents, or we just had young parents who didn't know what the hell they were doing. And so some of us are just unhappy, or some of us are involved in relationships and friendships with people who are miserable and don't know it, or act like they don't know it. And it's really just like recognizing what the blocks and hurdles are, clearing out those paths and addressing that, and then working on contentment, which I discuss in my new journal. This is my year. Talked about that, and I've talked about that in the podcast. I feel like all of those 8 points that I discuss are pathways to happiness. Like, comparison is the thief of joy. Living life on your own terms, defining your own level of success. So those are the things that I think lead to true happiness. I think happiness is something that's an individual thing. I don't think that it's a broad. You can't paint that with that broad of a brush. Next question. How do you plan your next success move? You've accomplished major things you never dreamed of. Now what? What's next? Now, what's funny is that a lot of this stuff I did dream of, and then I worked towards it. And every move that I make is not successful. You just don't see it. You only see the things that are successful. I just plan to do things that I think people are calling me to do. So if I see an opportunity, if I think that people will find something that I can do useful, then I just plan for it. Like, I do have some plans in place, because there is a way that I kind of want my site and business to evolve. So I'm working on it. It is proven to be more challenging than I thought, but no more difficult than how it was when I first was starting Curlbox, and no one was calling me back, and nobody cared because they hadn't seen it yet. And then once you figure it out and you start popping with it, then everybody calls you. So I don't take it personal. I just go, not. It doesn't mean no. It means not yet. And so that's kind of how I do. Is that I just keep, my thought process is always evolve or dissolve. Like, if you don't keep pushing forward, then you will likely dissolve. You can't keep doing the same thing. And so that's why, going back to that question of the power of sameness, like, you have to evolve at some point. And so I have mastered the mundane, but I have to continue to be creative. I have to continue to try things, and I have to be okay to fail at some things, which I have. And you keep moving. This is our last question. How do you stay bold and fearless as an entrepreneur and a woman? You openly admit you have failed before, but how do you pick yourself back up? And how do you so openly share your story and your knowledge? I love your Snapchats, by the way. They inspire me. I think I addressed this in the first question, that I am committed to living my best life. I am committed to being who I am, and I don't care much about how people feel about that. Like, it's not to say that I'm just reckless and ruthless and awful and any of those things, but I'm just like, I'm not doing anything to anybody by being who I am. I think at times people's confidence offends others, but that's not my problem. And I have been asked before, which is so bizarre, like, how am I so confident as a dark skinned woman? I'm just like, am I not supposed to be confident? Like, who told you that? Like, you have to, like, it's all in what you decide to believe. And it's like 9 times out of 10, other people are not even worried about you in the way that you think they are. Most people don't care. And if I fail, I just say, the thing about it is, like, I'm not going to get everything right. And it's like either I win or I learn, but I don't lose. So I fail forward. I learned something. I either learn I don't need to do it again. I'm sure I learned something that will help me do it better. And I have no problem sharing my story or sharing my knowledge, because um, I believe that the power is in the secret. So if you have any secrets, that's how people kind of control you, and that secret has power over you. And I'm just like, okay, I don't really have any secrets. Like, do I tell you every single thing? No, I don't, because why? But I've told you a lot of things, because then if somebody tries to tell you something about me, or you find out something about me, you already know that. And so those secrets, or my failures, or my things that I've done that I'm not most proud of, they don't have any power over me. And some people seem to think that you can't make mistakes and also be successful. And people do it all the time. I'm always like crack up when people see that celebrities do something stupid. I'm like, they're human, they're normal. Why would they not do something like that? It's like and even if you failed, or if you've made a mistake, you can also still succeed too. It's just like, you are not what happened to you. You are what you make happen, and you have to remember that. And so you have to work on being fearless. You have to, stand tall. You have to speak up. You have to use your voice. You have to use your words, and you cannot be afraid of looking stupid or dumb or crazy or whatever it is that people say. You just have to stand up and speak out and be bold and be confident and know what the hell you're talking about. That's the problem. A lot of times you don't even know what you're talking about, and that's your fault. So do the research, get it right, and that's all I got for you. You guys have a good day.